My sweet client Mandy is here to share her pregnancy success story, which is just a beautiful, beautiful journey, but it wasn't always easy. In this story, we have fear, we have weariness, we have anger with God, and I bet these are emotions that you can connect with. So I want you to hear Mandy's side of the story, what she went through, what she did, how she wrestled with that anger, and how she came out on the other side. She has a doozy of a story and quite the word for you. Let's go. Welcome to the Fruitful Fertility Co podcast, your holistic, faith-filled, no-fluff guide to getting pregnant naturally. I'm your host and TTC BFF, Tori Black, here to pull you out of your weariness and cheer you into God's calling to be a mother, all while giving you the simple, bite-sized steps to improve your fertility. Let's trade stress and overwhelm for hope, because girl, you look fertile to me. Before we dive into the episode, I want to invite you to apply for a free clarity call. This is a 20-minute call where we dive into what you've tried, what kind of support you're looking for, and find you the best step forward and see if we're a good fit to work together. If you're looking for answers, clarity, and direction, fill out the application in the show notes below. Now, back to the episode. Today we have a very special guest. I have a very OG unique client sharing her story today, which is such a good one, and I'm so glad to hear it. Mandy, thank you so much for being here with us, and tell us a little bit about the beginning of your fertility journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited as well, just because you played such a big part in the mental health of my fertility journey and just the encouragement of my journey. But I feel like any couple that decides that they're ready to start trying to conceive, you don't expect to run into issues. You have so many friends around you that get pregnant naturally so quickly that you just don't expect that to be your story. So when we decided that we wanted to start trying at the beginning of 2023, we were both in our 30s. We're like, let's try. And it just wasn't happening. And obviously we waited that whole year mark because that's what all the professionals tell you, wait a year. So we did. Yeah, like we waited a whole year. And then finally went to my doctor and just said, hey, we've been trying to get pregnant. It's not happening. What do we do? And at that point, I guess like I was tracking my cycles. I was doing the things that I thought like proactively I could do to try to get pregnant, and none of it was working. So at that point, I went to my doctor. I did my lab work. My husband got tested. Um, and when I had my appointment with the doctor, it was a doctor I had never seen before because it wasn't my OBGYN. It was just like a specialist OBGYN in that practice. But she came into the room and just like started giving me all this information and just didn't explain anything health wise. Like, I'm going there just asking questions. What is wrong with me? We've been trying for a year. Why are we not pregnant? And instead of answering any of those questions, she was like, we're going to put you on this medication and this medication, and you're going to do this test and you're going to do this. And then you're probably going to get pregnant in 3 months if you do all of this. But she never explained why we couldn't get pregnant. She never explained anything about my labs to me. So I actually left that appointment super discouraged because instead of going and just being like, hey, is there something wrong with me? Can you explain why my body's not getting pregnant? She just threw all these, to me, felt like band-aids, all these band-aids to the problem. And I left that appointment just crying because I felt very discouraged. I felt very like you just don't know what's wrong with you. I think part
Mm-hmm.
of the unexplained infertility is that it is unexplained. No one can tell you why you're not getting pregnant. And I wasn't okay with that. That
Yeah.
wasn't enough for me. So ironically, right at that point, when I was just very discouraged at that 1 year mark after all that testing and that appointment that really was not a positive experience for me, that is when I found your podcast. And it was a brand new podcast at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you were doing like a call to action to get some more listeners and to get some reviews. And that is when I found you and I entered a giveaway that you were doing and I won a call with you. So your call came right at that 1 year mark, right when I was very discouraged with my doctor. And that conversation did a lot for me.
Yes, I remember. That is so funny. That is so true. Because I looked at before we recorded, I looked up and I was like, when did me and Mandy talk for the very first time? And our call was on April 22nd, 2024. And I was like, oh man, that really is. I think I started my podcast at the end of 2023. it was like August 2023. And so it really was brand new at the time.
Hmm.
And I remember that. And I remember even you telling the story now, I remember you talking about that doctor's appointment and feeling, and I like you're not alone in that. I hear so often that women are like feel overlooked because like you said, it's like, we're gonna do this test, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, but it's like they're not even looking at you like a person. It's just like running you through the the conveyor belt at the
Hmm.
factory,
Yeah,
And it does feel really discouraging because, of course, we want to get pregnant, but so many people just like you, it's like, why though? I want to understand why. Because if I understood why, I could take the right action. But if you don't tell
exactly.
me why, then I feel like I have no options and maybe some options are still like maybe your doctor may have been giving you options that were okay for you, but you have no idea, and so they don't feel aligned, and it's like I still don't understand what's going on, and so there's still a
Hmm.
lot of that frustration. When you did the giveaway and you're like, okay, I found this random girl on a podcast and she's doing a giveaway and I'm gonna go talk to her. How did you feel about entering the giveaway? And then two, how did you feel when you won the giveaway?
Yeah, so I obviously was very discouraged. And I think when you get discouraged like that, especially in the fertility journey, it is very easy for honestly like the devil to just kind of come in and plant little seeds in your mind of like, you're not meant to be a mom. This isn't going to be
Hmm.
for you. Time is wasting away. Like, like there's just all these narratives that get kind of put in your head. And I know that they're not truths from God, but it's just hard to like bypass that. So that's kind of where I was. I was just feeling all these emotions. I was not in a good headspace. And I was just feeling discouraged. Like, what if this is never going to happen for me? And then I found your podcast. I was listening to episodes. I did the giveaway and like no expectations of winning, no expectations of anything coming out of it. And then I won. And that honestly to me was such a confirmation from God. Like I had been praying, I had been like, is this for me? Is this going to happen? Like I'm discouraged. And obviously our timelines don't always end up being what we want them to be, but that felt like a confirmation to me from God that hey, this is going to be part of your story. Just like bear with me. Like wait it
Hmm.
out. So to me that was like an answered prayer because I was just kind of like this you just tell yourself the worst case scenario, which is I'm not going to ever be a mom. So
Hmm.
winning that truly felt like confirmation from God. And then second, I literally was just looking through our like portal and our emails and I found like an email I sent to you saying after the call, I said I left our call feeling excited and hopeful about my next steps. So after leaving my doctor's appointment crying and
Yeah.
feeling like this isn't going to happen, I got off my call with you just excited and hopeful because I was just like, first, you gave me an understanding. Like, you literally, what the doctor could not do, you did. So, like, you sat down and read all my lab work and you explained each one to me. So, you're like, this is what your numbers mean, which I was just like, that's the bare minimum of what I'm asking from my healthcare provider.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I left the call just a completely different like levity to me because it just felt like, okay, I now have a path forward. I have solutions. That's not just medication, not just like, trying to like pump things into my body. And then because my thing is like, okay, great. If I'm not getting pregnant, there's a root problem. So if we just pump things into my body, are we solving the root problem or will
Right.
I still struggle like in pregnancy or after
Mhm.
pregnancy? So anyways, you brought just a different peace of mind to me and you
Mhm.
gave me a way through of things I could actually implement and do that were more holistic than what the doctor was wanting.
Yes, I remember that too because it's like it's so much of like you having a moment of like God confirmed for you to hang in there and you won this call and you got on this call and felt like this new like restored hope. That's how I feel when I get off these calls of like I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I really am called to like this feels so good."
Hmm.
Like and so I think clients like you and people that listen to the podcast don't even understand how much like when people tell me like I have my hope back, like how much that does for me, like on a very selfish level.
Yeah,
I'm
no, but
like,
it's true.
it feels like I feel the same way you guys feel. I'm like, this is good. Like we've got answers, we've got a plan, this is good. So I remember that so vividly. And yeah, I love that that's how you felt. And I just hope that's why I want to just reach as many women as possible because I want everyone to feel that way. But that's, yes, I love that. Okay, so then take us from there. So we won the call. You're moving forward. What happened after, like in the next year?
Yeah, so in the next year, I did end up getting pregnant, and I'll kind of walk through. After my call with you, you told me basically to advocate for myself medically as well.
Mm,
So I wasn't ready to work with you in a longer term
mm,
capacity at that time. Just I had some other insurance bills, other things that we are trying to like do through insurance. But I took everything from our call, specifically the things I was able to implement with you. You told me which prenatal to buy and which prenatal to start taking. You told me I was already walking a lot, but you kind of gave me a more strategic way to walk, like after my meals instead of a bigger walk. You actually told me to drink less water because you
mm.
said I was probably like depleting my
Mm-hmm.
supplements by the amount of water I was drinking. You had me eat more protein. So there's a lot of like just practical things I was able to do with you. Um, that I know helped like my lifestyle and helped that. Um, but I also started some vitamin B12 and vitamin D, like just different things like that. Um, the one thing that really bothered me in that 1 year time before I got pregnant was everyone was just like stress, stress, stress. Like
Yes.
stress is like such a big thing that comes up. And I know it comes up with you too, but
Mm.
it didn't bother me when it came up with you because you did give me like solutions. You gave me practical guides to deal with my stress. But that was one of those things where like doctors just throw that out. Like when they can't explain your fertility, they're like, it could be stress. It could be stress. And it's just like, that's not helpful.
Yes,
Like you telling me
exactly.
it's stress is making me stress even
Yeah.
more. But yeah, we did end up getting pregnant 1 year after working with you.
Mm,
Um, but then we lost that pregnancy. So then it was still that's like a whole different kind of part of our fertility story, but it took us 2 years initially to get pregnant the
mm,
first time. And it was a lot of implementing the stuff that you suggested doing.
mm,
Um, and you telling me to just advocate for myself, I went back to the doctor, but spoke with a different doctor and
mm,
voiced to them how frustrated I was with that first experience and voiced to them how you had to be the one to explain my labs to me. So that was better then because it kind of allowed me to set boundaries of like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. We did end up consulting with a fertility clinic, but again, it was an experience that I walked away from crying
yeah.
and felt discouraged. So to me, like some of those emotions, like the fact that I walked away from my experience with you at peace and
Mm,
feeling hopeful and excited, that is also just like my body telling me that that was the right next step. And when I went into the fertility clinic or went into my doctor's office and I walk away crying and in tears, I'm like, I don't have inner peace about that.
mm.
Like, that's not my route to getting pregnant because it clearly doesn't sit right with my soul, the things
Right.
that they're like having me do. Um, so anyways, I feel like
Mm.
that maybe
Yeah.
that's a comprehensive of that first pregnancy.
Yeah. So 1 year trying and then waited a year to get help. We chatted, then another year, and then you finally got pregnant and then lost
Hmm.
that pregnancy at how many weeks?
Yeah, that was 8 weeks. And what was really hard about that loss, and I know a lot of people, now I know a lot of people that have gone through it, but at the time I just didn't know anyone, but it's called a missed miscarriage. So basically, we went into the appointment. My body had absolutely no symptoms that there was something wrong. I still had all my pregnancy cravings. I was not bleeding. I was not cramping. There was like no signs of anything wrong. And we went in for an ultrasound and they could not find a heartbeat. But what was also unique is the baby was measuring right on time. Like we were just maybe a day behind in what we were measuring versus what we were there for. So they didn't want to flat out call that it was a loss yet. They needed me to come back in a week's time to verify that there had been no growth because it was like maybe it's a faint heart, maybe we just can't see it. So I had like a whole week of just like
Oh my God.
praying and being hopeful that God would like I don't know, like honestly, like breathe life. Like
Mm-hmm.
like miracles happen and like he can breathe life and bring things back to life. So I had like a whole week of just like kind of expectation and hopefulness that God could like turn this around and I would go back in a week's time and be told like, hey, we found a heart. And that obviously didn't happen. And after waiting for 2 years, it is it's devastating in any capacity, but I
Mm.
feel like when you've been struggling to get pregnant and it is such a strong desire that you can't like get rid of, it just feels devastating because it feels like you were so close and then it's gone and you're just like, God, like why? Like why did
Yes.
this happen?
Yeah, like how did I come through 2 years of struggling and worrying and tears and stress that when I'm not supposed to be stressing and to end up here? And that is so hard. And even that, like for there to be no reason to think that anything's wrong, like you're not bleeding, nothing's happening, and then just kind of get this devastating news with strangers in an office is so heavy. And so then where did you go mentally, or what were your plans after that? After suffering this loss, kind of what did that look like moving forward?
Yeah, I feel like this is where it's also so different for every person because I mean, you have to grieve your loss and obviously you can't control the timing of things. Like my biggest fear at that time, I really did have the most amazing OBGYN for that season.
Hmm.
She had gone through 5 losses herself. She struggled to conceive several times as well. So she handled me with such compassion and empathy and grace and walked me through my options in a way that I'm just so grateful for because I feel like God, again, those are like things that to me tangibly feel like God's presence in my fertility
Yes.
journey in a doctor's office, um, her care to me felt like God. And then um, the lady that draws my blood at my OBGYN, she's the one that did all my fertility, oh my gosh, all my fertility labs. She's the one that tracked my first pregnancy, and then she's the one that had to track it back down to 0 when we lost that pregnancy. So anyways, she knew me, she knew my story, she knew the struggle, and she started praying with me at my like blood draws.
So
So
good.
again, to me, those are just little instances of God puts the right people in your journey, even,
Hmm.
like even when it's something that you don't want to be walking through, you don't want to experience, he puts the right people there. So I'm eternally grateful for that because it does change the experience. But I think what's hard about loss is when you've struggled to conceive, you don't know how long it's going to take to conceive again.
Hmm.
So I know there's probably some people that like waited it out and didn't decide to start trying again and wanted to like just let their body like ride that wave of grief. I probably put extra stress on myself because I just mentally felt like I didn't have the time to do that.
Yeah.
I like cried to my doctor. I said, it took us 2 years to get here. Is it going to take us 2 more years to like
Mm.
conceive again? Because I can't do that. Like, I literally just felt like I cannot go through this for another 2 years. It feels hopeless to me.
Right.
Um, and again, she just spoke life into me. She was just like, no, I truly don't believe it's going to take you 2 years. I believe you're going to be a mom. I believe you're going to get pregnant. So like I'm grateful for those words of like speaking life over me and over my womb. But mentally I was struggling. It was very hard. And I think you wrestle, at least for me, it was a lot of tears, a lot of anger. And it started with like anger at God. Like,
Hmm.
why did this happen? You literally could have given us this miracle story. This could have been a story about how there was no heartbeat and then we had a heartbeat. It could have been this like miracle and
Yes.
like all glory to you. It literally would have been like miracle. But that's not what happened.
Hmm.
So I started with anger. All my prayers were just filled with so much anger and sadness and bitterness. And then it is really kind of fascinating because he was working on my heart a lot. Um, I kind of just went through, I mentioned very briefly before our call, I went through this journey where I read the Bible in 30 days. It's called The Shred, and you just read it in 30 days. It's very like fire hydrant style of like
Yeah.
theology. But I did that just because I was so hopeless and I was just like, I just need something. Like God feels distant right now because this hurt. This makes me like maybe not trust him. This is hard. So I was like, I'm just going to put myself in there even further because what I want to do is distance myself right now. And it is really fascinating because my prayers went from having so much anger to saying, I don't understand why this happened, but I'm going to trust you. And then, like, sometime after that, saying, okay, again, I don't understand why this happened, but I trust you and I believe you're going to use this for good. And I specifically was claiming just specific things in my life that I wanted him to like use this for good, because that is a promise that we have.
Mm.
Like we go through bad things, but he can turn the bad for good. So it is really fascinating to me just to even see like that transformation in my own life of like just pure anger and grief to like still having deep grief, but knowing that God is in it
Mhm.
and knowing that he grieves with me and I wasn't alone in my grief. And truly, like he grieves with me. This is not his plan for me either, but we live in a broken world.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of where I was mentally and
Yeah.
emotionally not good.
It makes me, but what I love so much about that story you just shared is it makes me think of um Jacob. Is it Jacob that wrestles with God? He's like, I'm not letting go of you until
Hmm.
you bless me. And that's how it feels like you came to God with all this anger, but you didn't let it send you in a different direction. You're like, I'm mad at you, and so I'm going to dig so deep into your word and wrestle with you through this, and I'm not letting go
Hmm.
until you pull me out of this. Like that
Yeah.
is a very just beautiful response to a heartbreaking situation. And because you're right, it's like I'm one of those, like, I don't know that I believe everything happens for a reason, but I truly, in my heart of hearts, believe God will use every hurt. He will
Yes.
use it for good, for his glory, for our betterment, you know. So to take that, to take such deep grief and to be able to sit in that and stay with it and wrestle with it and not let it go is so beautiful and is exactly what you should do. You know, you shouldn't hide the fact that you're mad or act that like you're not mad or not bring your anger to the Lord because he knows and he can handle our anger,
Hmm.
you know, but to sit with him in it instead of being like, well, I'm just gonna and peace out. Like you obviously
Yeah.
don't love me. This didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Why would you do this? Why would you bring me through 2 years of pain to have my heart broken, you know? And I think it really is the fact that, you know, we haven't even got to this yet, but the fact that you're like very pregnant right now,
Hmm.
you know, like a beautiful testimony in that. You're like, I could have, and it's also that, you know, Brandon Lake and Nick Jonas just put out that song about the author and the pen. And it's like, so you're like, God, I got a great story right here. Like,
Hmm.
I'll write the story. You just put the heartbeat back. Fantastic story, glorifies you, all the glory to you. I can write a great story. And yet your story is even better because you
Hmm.
let him hold the pen and you let him write the story. And it wasn't hard and you had to wrestle with it and fire hydrate yourself with Bible verses to get through it.
Yeah.
But that's such a beautiful response. And I love that so, so much. So let's fast forward. So that was like you had the miscarriage. And now you are pregnant. So you
Hmm.
signed up to work with me. You're like, okay, I'm ready to do the HTMA and do all the things. And then I think we weren't even, what, like a month. I don't even think I'd mailed you your kit yet, and you
Yeah.
were pregnant. So tell
Yeah.
us like what how you think that happened or the timeline there, what you would attribute that to. Because I know what I would attribute it to, but I want to hear what
Yeah.
you say first.
Well, I'm definitely curious to hear your opinion because an outside perspective would probably be very good and helpful because it's like, I feel like, I mean, we started trying again. I was tracking again, which I have mixed feelings about because I know that you say you have to release that a little bit. And I do agree. I could not release it in the moment. Like, I literally
Yeah.
could not. In hindsight, I'm like, yeah, I wish I tracked less because it is an extra strain. But neither here nor there, I was panicked and I
Yes.
was like, just trying to make it happen, trying to do everything in my control to make it happen. But obviously we started trying again. And again, I don't know if it's a positive or a negative, but we did kind of go through that entire first pregnancy's timeline. I didn't get the positive pregnancy test for our second pregnancy until the week of our due date. And I do think that's like a God's timing
Mhm.
because I was in a bad headspace. I was
Mhm.
deep in grief. So it gave me like a semblance of hope. It gave me something to just like look forward to while, grieving the fact that that would have been our due date. We would have had a baby at home. We would like life would have looked so different. Um, But we started trying again, and I feel like there's an element of surrender, and I feel like there's surrender the entire time that you're trying to conceive because you have to give it up, you can't control it. But I think in my broken state where I truly was just crying, just like so many tears, crying when I was showering, crying getting ready, like so much grief that I was working through, there just had to be a brokenness of like, God, I clearly can't do this. Like, I got pregnant and my body couldn't even register that the baby
Mm-hmm.
died. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my body clearly cannot do this. Like, this is going to be a you thing. So I feel like there was an element of surrender. And I do think it was such a gift from him for the timing to line up for it to be our due date. But like, I was still doing all the things we like had
Mm-hmm.
stated to do. I was still doing all that stuff. I had tried a couple medicated cycles at that point
Mm-hmm.
out of like desperation,
Yeah.
and they went nowhere. Like I did letrozole, it went nowhere. That did not work for me. So I was like, this is clearly not going to be the thing. So it's either you or like it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it did end up happening. And I think for me, like I signed up to work for you or to work with you, and it wasn't even to like fully optimize everything fertility wise. I just needed the mental support. And I told you that when I signed up. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, my mental health is in the trash.
Yes.
This is like, I mean, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Like literally like trying to conceive can drive you insane if you are not careful. And that is where I feel like I was. And I was just like, I just need someone I trust. I need someone I can partner with. I need someone that can like pray with me. I need someone that's like just going to allow me to like voice my spiral to them instead of me trying to like go to my partner, my parents, or my friends. Like I was like, I just need someone that I can pay that will let me like tell them when I'm spiraling over trying to conceive. And that is when I was like, I'm just going to sign up to work with Tori again.
Yes.
And then the timing was just so fun to me because I feel like God knew exactly what I needed. Because, yeah, I got that positive pregnancy test before we even had like our first call together.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sent it to you. You were the first person I told outside of my husband. I was just like, I think I'm pregnant. But I think God knew that I would need your support even more being pregnant than trying to conceive. Because after losing our first pregnancy, there's so much fear that was in me. There was so much fear in my mindset around being pregnant again. And I think he just knew that I needed your support. And I used you. Like I
Yes.
messaged you so much. And I was just like, Tori, what if there's no heartbeat? Tori, what if our baby's dead? But his timing is so gracious because I needed that. Like I needed your support more after getting pregnant than I did trying to conceive truly.
Yes, yes, I remember those first weeks so fondly. You're like, all right, it was like literally like clockwork. All right, I'm spiraling. I'm like, okay, let's talk about it, you know? And then the
Yeah.
next week is like, all right, I feel so much better. And then the next week is like, okay, I'm spiraling. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about it, you know? But I completely agree with you. I think it is the 100% the reason you got pregnant is surrender. That is
Hmm.
what it was because you came, and even just like we talked about, like you went through that season of heartbreak, wrestling with God, you know, and trying other things and saying, like, okay, well, I'm going to keep trying while I'm wrestling in this despair. And then finally, like, I feel like something in you just was like, there was just chaos. And then you're
Hmm.
like, okay, I'm just going to have to like put this down. Like, I'm not going to quit. I
Yes.
think that's really important to remember too. Like some people are like, well, maybe I just need to take a break and maybe I don't need to try for a while. And that is totally fine. I totally support people that want to do that, but it doesn't have to look like that. But what you have to put down is the mental weight. You
Yes.
have to quit doom scrolling and quit trying the next thing and quit doing more tests and quit doing this. You have to surrender it, which is so hard to do, especially for us control freaks, you know?
Hmm.
But I think that's what it was. I think that surrender of like, okay, this has to be God's way. I'm gonna work with Tori. And like, not that it's about me, but that decision that you were going to let God do what he wanted to do in his timing and you were still taking action,
Hmm.
that's what it was. That unlocked some safety,
Yeah.
mechanism in your nervous system and allowed God to be like, okay, now that you trust me, let me show you what I can do.
Yeah.
And because I know you're going to be fearful, I do have someone for you, but like it wasn't me. It wasn't like God gave you me to help you get pregnant. God was like, I got you. I'm going to show
Yeah.
you that I can do it. But I am going to have someone hold your hand because I know you're about to spiral out of control because I know
Yes.
you. You know?
Yeah. No, to me, it was such a gift because even the timing of it, I literally had you up until like the end of the first trimester.
Hmm.
So like that was what our contract like time together was. I was just like, man, just how amazing for that timing because I truly needed it. I needed that support. I needed your prayers. I needed your advice. I needed your encouragement. And I'm just like, he knew that. Like and
Yes.
I think you are such a gift to the couples trying to conceive as well. Um, that's a whole different story of like maybe if I had done the one-on-one with you earlier on, maybe that would have been a different story too.
Yeah.
But I think where I needed you in my life was that encouragement the first time around of God confirming like, yes, this is a plan I have for you, and I'm going to use Tori to like show you that. And then the second time was once I was pregnant again, just like, hey, this pregnancy is going to work out. Like
Hmm.
it's going to be okay. It's going to be a different story. I'm going to redeem this, but I know it's going to be hard for you to walk through it. So I'm going to give you someone to help you
Yes.
along the
And
way.
I even remember those beginning conversations of like, it was a lot of like encouragement, like, yes, God called you to do this, but then also some really like I don't want to call it dark, but like some tough love of like, you're like, what if
Yeah.
I lose my baby? I'm like, you might,
Yeah.
like we have to accept the fact that you might. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I
Yeah.
don't think that's your story. But we also, like, while we're already in this surrender phase, we got to surrender that too, because if it
Yes.
does happen, you will be okay. And that's really hard to hear. And it's like, and I even don't love that because I do feel like I want to be the rainbows and sunshine of the fertility space, And so it's like, no, God calls you to be a mom. You're going to be pregnant. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Believe it. And I do truly believe that in my heart of hearts, but it was like, but we're going to have to release the fact that we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. And I feel
Yeah.
like that was a pivotal step for you too. I remember having that conversation and being like, Mandy, it may happen again
Yeah.
and we're gonna get through it again. And then even that of like, because I feel like it was this white knuckling of like, I cannot do this again. And it
Yes.
was like, you may have to do this again. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but we are going to prepare our hearts and go ahead and pre-decide how we're going to react.
Yeah.
Like we're not going to hide from it so that if it did happen, we were traumatized by, I mean, you'd still be traumatized, but it would overtake us. We would just move through it differently. So that was
Yeah.
really fun. It was fun to watch those weeks progress of like fear, 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 a little bit of hope mixed with fear,
Uh-huh.
hope, hope, hope. And then even your gender reveal pictures are like the perfect, like the cutest, most perfect of like, oh my gosh, like here we are,
Yeah.
we like God did it. And it was just so fun to watch. And it was such an honor to be a part of it. And it was just, yeah, it was so good. It was so good. And I was going to say something else about that. I think a coincidence. I have a mentor. He's a nurse practitioner that I used to work with at a cancer center, and he's just incredibly wise. But one of the things he says all the time is there's no such thing as coincidence. There's
Hmm.
only God. And so, like, is it a coincidence that you signed up to work with me and immediately turned around and got pregnant? Like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
That happened exactly the way it should. And then I also remember your message too of sending me your pregnancy test and being like, I think I'm pregnant, but like, also, please send me my kit. I still want to do this.
Yeah.
Like, please do not leave me because I am pregnant, be like,
Yeah.
I am still fully in, which I loved. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, let's roll through this together. So that was fun too. Even for me, it was like a different a different journey that we did together. So it
Yeah.
was a good learning and growing season for me too. And I loved getting to do that with you. Of which I feel like you've already shared so much goodness and so much encouragement here. But if you, let's say there's a woman listening right now that is exactly where you were. She's been trying for years. Maybe she's had a miscarriage and she's sitting in fear and anger and doubt right now. What would be your biggest encouragement or tip or takeaway from this episode?
Yeah, I feel like earlier on, like within around that 1 year mark when we were trying to conceive, I had a friend who had gone through fertility issues, and she shared with me just a reminder that every woman in the Bible that we see that had this desire to be a mom, all of them ended up conceiving.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I kind of tucked that away in my head. and just kind of had it in the back of my mind, like, okay, that's true. If this is a desire that I had from God, it will come to fruition. I don't know when, I don't know how, but it will happen. So then when obviously after my miscarriage, after my loss, when I kind of just dove into the Bible and really was just, I mean, I was honestly just trying to find all of the like parallels of loss and parallels of like, grief and all that stuff, pregnancy, just trying to find all the stories that resonated with me while kind of digging
Mm-hmm.
in and getting closer to God in this way. But I just kind of made note. I was like, yeah, we have Sarah, we have Rachel, we have Samson's mom, we have Hannah, we have Elizabeth. Like, there are so many women, and it is true. It's not always in the timing that they want. Like, Elizabeth was not in the timing that would have made sense to her, but they all conceived. So that's like the first thing. There is like a power in just leaning in and knowing like these are like heroes from the Bible. These are women that we can, like, we have their story for a reason. And I don't think that it was like fruitless or effortless to have all of these stories of infertility in the Bible. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's a very true grief, a very true trauma, and a very deep experience, but like God didn't leave us without the encouragement for it. So that would be my first thing, is like tuck that away because it's such a truth, but like it's easy to forget that. So I'm like, if you have that desire is probably like, it is probably from God. Like,
Mm-hmm.
pray about it, test it. But I'm
Yeah.
like, if you have that desire, it is for a reason. Second, when I went through my miscarriage, out of everything I read in the Bible, like all of the Lamentations and Habakkuk and the Psalms, like all the things about grief and sorrow, what actually stood out to me the most was in Luke 22, when Jesus tells Simon Peter that Satan has asked to sift him as wheat, but that Jesus prayed for him. Jesus prayed that his faith would not fail, and that when he would turn back from his trial, he would strengthen those around him. And obviously, the context was not fertility. The
Mm-hmm.
context has nothing to do with this. But that verse just stood out to me like a light. And in the midst of my trial, like, it just made me realize everyone, like, I luckily, well, luckily and unluckily, I've had several friends that walked through loss. So in my season of loss, I immediately had like four ladies that just encircled me, cried with me, encouraged me. They had all gone through loss and they all came on the other side of it, with a baby. So I realized, like, man, these people were like beacons of hope to me. So
Mm-hmm.
this verse just stuck out to me because I was just like, I'm going through this right now. I don't understand why, but I truly believe that like Jesus is sustaining me. Like, Jesus is praying for me. And he wants me to come out of this and encourage others. Like, this story can be used.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know what it's going to look like because I'm in, like, I was in the messy middle,
Yes.
but that stood out to me. So I just want to also encourage with that. Like, you just don't know. Like, it's not fun to have the story, but you
Yeah.
don't know how God's going to use it. And you don't
Mm-hmm.
know how he's writing it. And you don't know the end, but it can surprise you. And now that I am pregnant again, like, what a blessing. We're 26 weeks. Baby is starting, like, I'm feeling baby every day. I feel her kick. I feel her, like, just like there's life inside of me. And I'm just like, I could not have perceived that a year ago because I literally had death inside of me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my body could not process the death that was inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't even know what to think if you told me a year ago, like, hey, in a year's time, you will be pregnant, and like you'll be pregnant with a baby girl and like
Mm-hmm.
it'll be healthy. Um, but the verse that stood out to me, around the time that we got the positive pregnancy test, that was in December. So I was doing a bunch of Advent readings. And one of the Advent readings ended up being in Mark, where Jesus heals a demon possessed man. And the man wants to follow Jesus and go with him. And Jesus says, no, return home and tell others what I've done for you and tell them the mercy I've showed you. And that to me was like, okay, eventually I wasn't ready to share about the pregnancy yet at that point, and I really wasn't ready to share about it publicly until 20 weeks because it was just so much fear encased in my story. But I was just like, I have to tell people what he has done for me. He
Mm-hmm.
has healed me. He has given me this gift. And I just feel like there's certain verses that just stick out to you. And those are ones that like made such an impact to me in my journey.
Yes, that is some gold nuggets. And I truly believe, like you're like, this is not even a fertility verse, but it stood out to me like a light because it was exactly what God was trying to communicate with you. And I even noticed that I get a lot of like fertility inspiration from verses that have nothing to do with fertility,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just, which is, you're right, like the Bible is like God breathed word. He can use it a million different ways. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And even like the end where you're like, God gave me this story to share with others. And like you shared it perfectly here. And I am so excited for everyone to listen to this and be blessed by it because you shared a lot of hope, which is the majority of what we need.
Mm-hmm.
The testing is helpful, the lifestyle changes is helpful, but hope is the thing we need infused in us in heavy doses. So, and I
Yeah,
think you did exactly that. So, thank you so much for sharing your story, Mandy, and being here today.
absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for hanging out with me today. If this episode touched your heart or taught you something, I'd be honored if you'd share it with a friend who could use the information too. And if you want to be the real MVP, then would you also take 30 seconds to tap those 5 stars at the bottom and leave a written review telling me what you're loving? It lights me up to know this podcast is really helping you. Don't forget, you're super cute and super fertile, so meet me back here next week and let's keep chatting and learning together.